If you were to ask me what is my favorite watch of 2021, I would have a hard time giving you one straight answer because the truth is there were a lot of great watches released this year. So today, to round off 2021, I'm going to give you a list of my favorite watches that were released. And my list is basically going to cover any watch that I personally would consider to purchase and add into my collection. I'll also give you reasons why I chose them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on my choices and what watches were your favorite. So now, without further ado and in no particular order, here are my top favorite watches of 2021. Starting at number 1 is the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. Who knew that Zenith was going to shock the watch industry with one of the most handsome, divisive modern chronograph watches today? When people look at the Zenith Chronomaster Sport, they immediately think about another classic luxury sport watch, aka the Rolex Daytona Ceramic. But the Zenith Chronomaster Sport deserves all its praise. Now, aside from recently winning the GPHG for Best Chronograph, basically like the Oscars of the watch industry, here's why I love the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. First is the size. Even at 41mm, this watch has a lug-to-lug of near 46mm, which is extremely compact for a 41mm watch. That means that my 6.4-inch wrist can handle this watch with ease. If the sizing didn't work so well, I probably wouldn't have even considered it, but because of how much it surprised me, it just led me down the rabbit hole of what else there was to enjoy. Second was the movement. Inside is a classic Zenith El Primero high beat chronograph that can measure 1/10 of a second. Now, most of us won't need to measure our parking meter to the 10th of a second, but the idea that Zenith was going to input this movement and repurpose the thick black ceramic bezel in unison with the movement made it even more practical, because come on, who here knows how to use the tachometer scale? Additionally, it was the design. When I look at the Chronomaster Sport, it is that classic white dial sport watch, but redesigned in Zenith's own language. That means you have Zenith's tricolor subdials, date between 4 and 5 o'clock, pump pushers, and open case back with a skeletonized Zenith rotor that you can view and enjoy. A 10-bar water resistance, making it an easy watch to wear day in and day out. It's listed at $10,000 for the all steel, and honestly it's worth every penny because you're getting a high functional chronograph sport watch with super sharp looks. At number 2, this might come as a surprise, but Tudor was another brand that really left an impression with me this year with the Tudor Black Bay 58 925 Silver. It's no surprise that the Black Bay 58 is so popular among collectors due to its near perfect size of 39mm, making it universally wearable for most wrists, having that vintage inspired but modern take on the dive watch, an in-house movement, silicone balance spring, no date, and more. But what sets the 925 Silver apart is of course in the silver composition that Tudor used to create this modern piece. Silver is a very uncommon material used in watchmaking today. We're used to seeing the likes of stainless steel, gold, platinum, even bronze, but silver? No way. Silver traditionally was used in pocket watches back years ago, but due to silver having a natural tendency to tarnish and being a soft metal kind of pushed its usage to the sidelines. According to Tudor, the Black Bay 58 925 Silver is maximized for luminance in the silver case, and I'm actually interested to see what this will look like in 2031 when it has a nice warm patina over it. Aside from that, the entire case is brushed satin finished, while the standard Black Bay 58 has polished case sides, and this one also has a cool top color, which pretty much looks ghost gray. Usually you'd see this kind of ghost pale gray color of aluminum bezels that have naturally faded after many years of wear. The bezel on the Tudor Black Bay 58 is one of the best I've seen and felt. It's a 60-click unidirectional bezel that has a satisfying audible noise that is nice and tight to the case. Inside the watch is an in-house MT5400 cost certified movement that can hold a power reserve of 70 hours. Now for a dive watch, having an open case back might seem unnecessary, but since the case is made in silver, I'd much prefer having a sapphire crystal case back than to just have a large silver plate on the back that would probably patina at a faster rate since it would be in direct contact to my skin, sweat, water, While most of us probably don't dive with their dive watches, Tudor's Black Bay 58925 looks amazing on the wrist, and the dial features a classic Tudor snowflake hour hand with applied hour markers filled generously with super luminova. It has a very symmetrical design with shapes such as triangles, rectangles, and circles blended together in a very easy to read format, and I love that this series has no date window. It's no wonder that the Black Bay 58 has been so popular, and the 925 Silver Edition just adds some fun into the mix. Coming in at number 3 is another dive watch. This time it's the Omega Seamaster 300. Most people know Omega Seamaster for the Diver 300 or the James Bond watch, but my taste has always been more vintage-ish tool watch look. That's where the Seamaster 300 comes in this year with the sandwich dial, master chronometer movement, taper bracelet, full moon bezel, and slimmer wearing experience. Even though it's a 41mm with a lug-to-lug of 48mm, the case was slimmer, yet the dial is larger. I've been waiting for this watch to launch since 2019, y'all, and yes, I know you saw those leaks. Inside of a standard printed dial, Omega uses a sandwich dial, meaning that there's a separate base underneath the black matted dial that creates some reverse effect of adding applied indices. Omega even brought back the Lollipop seconds hand, which I just love. The flat link bracelet looks great and now tapers to 16mm at the clasp with a micro adjustment on the fly up to 3 positions. Inside is a master chronometer movement guaranteeing high accuracy and anti-magnetic to the force of an MRI machine. It's funny how the Omega Seamaster 300 was the first series to get the master coaxial movement back around 2015, right before master chronometer was officially launched, and now it's one of the last collections to finally get that master chronometer certification today. I love the Seamaster 300 because the watch feels subtle and simply designed, but at the same time it's completely over-engineered for a dive watch. You have the basic dive watch things such as a rotating bezel, lume, and guaranteed water resistance. But Omega decides to do things differently with a full lume aluminum bezel, sapphire crystal caseback, and dual lume super luminova emission. The full lume bezel also reminds me of the awesome sapphire crystal full lume bezels from Blancpain, but at half or a third of the price. Now this watch could easily make a one watch collection, blending in a luxury sports dive watch and not just as a utilitarian tool watch. Staying on the Omega train for a bit, this is the Speedmaster Moonwatch, which launched very early in 2021. Now, Omega's Moonwatch Professional is a watch that most collectors will recommend you collect if you're serious into collecting watches. Not only for its tie-in to being actual NASA certified timing instrument that civilians can normally purchase, but also for having a perfect balance of timeless design, heritage, and an awesome chronograph. The new Omega Moonwatch uses an upgraded 3861 movement, which now is Master Chronometer certified, meaning you get the same anti-magnetic accuracy, power reserve advantages, but now also having a stop second. Even for a 42mm, the Omega Moonwatch wears well on most wrists and is an actual strap monster. This year, Omega brought a new presidential style bracelet that tapers down to 16mm at the floating clasp and wears extremely well on the wrist. I know people enjoy this so much that people have been ordering just a bracelet for their previous generation Moonwatches from our store. Omega knows that this classic Moonwatch means so much to many of us, so they only made slight changes to the dial, such as the dot over 90 on the bezel, the new bracelet, a step dial, and movement. I love this watch because it's a no-brainer upgrade to a beloved wristwatch that I know many of us will enjoy, and it doesn't cannibalize the previous generation of Moonwatches, as I still see people going after the 1861 version as well. It is like a modern collectible piece and has remained as one of the best collectible modern chronograph watches out there. Up next is the Grand Seiko Omiwatari SBGY007. Hands down, the Omiwatari is incredible. This is Grand Seiko's first spring drive manual wind with the power reserve on the case back. That is not a limited edition, but honestly, it could very well be one. The nickname Omiwatari comes from the pattern of the dial, which represents Lake Suwa outside of the Shinshu watch studio, where spring drive and 9F quartz are assembled. The dial appears frozen just like Lake Suwa in winter, and every once in a while a natural phenomenon happens where the ice shifts and creates ridges protruding on top of the ice. This is called Omiwatari, or in English translated to God's Crossing. It's such a known phenomenon that it's an actual tourist attraction if you ever visit the region. Grand Seiko naming this watch after a godlike occurrence embodies the natural environment in Japan and their dials, and is beautifully and subtly reflected here. Inside is a 9R spring drive which produces the perfect sweep over the frozen light blue dial, and if you flip the watch over, you can view the power reserve as well as Grand Seiko's finishing. Some may complain that the movement is covered, but in general, spring drive movements that contain an IC package to regulate the accuracy via a quartz crystals are sensitive to light, so usually it's not seen on other spring drive models anyways. This is Grand Seiko continuing to redefine spring drives minus plus 1 second per day accuracy in different models and giving people what they want, the power reserve on the back. While the power reserve indicator never bothered me on the dial, I can't deny that I actually prefer the version where the dial is clean and it is literally an expression of time. Not to mention, this watch is a 39mm case and will look amazing on straps. It's subtle but powerful on the wrist. 2021 celebrates the 100th year anniversary of Vacheron Constantin's American 1921, part of the Histories collection. So this year, Vacheron Constantin brought 3 new models. 2 in white gold, 1 in 40mm and 1 in 36.5mm, and 1 in platinum and 40mm. My favorite is the 36mm white gold version, mainly for its compact size in that cushioned square shape. The American 1921 was a piece originally commissioned for an American client who wanted to be able to read the time on his watch while his hands remained on the steering wheel. Greatest generation problems, am I right? This watch became an icon for Vacheron Constantin, hence why it is a part of the Histories collection. And if you know Vacheron Constantin, then you know that they like to do things classic with a twist. I love white gold and white metals in general because they are stealthy but still have that weighty, precious metal feel. You can easily spot this watch across room because of its iconic design and unusual 90-degree turned alignment. On the technical side, it has one of my favorite Vacheron Constantin base calibers, the 4400. The caliber 4400 is exquisitely finished with Geneva hand finishing, contains a power reserve of 65 hours, and is extremely thin at 2.8mm. I love this caliber because it is completely over-engineered, over-decorated for a simple hour, minutes, and small seconds, and it's exactly what I'd expect from a Holy Trinity watch brand. The American 1921 white gold will also be a strap monster, so you can personalize it whatever way you want, and it is always guaranteed to strike up a conversation because it has such a quirky design. I prefer the 36mm size because the watch has a square cushion shape. It will wear a little bit larger, more like a 38mm. And the same could be said about the 40mm wearing larger like a 41 or 42mm. On the wrist, it's understated, under the radar, but you know it's there. Coming in hot is another Vacheron Constantin, this time the grail-worthy Overseas Perpetual Calendar, ultra thin in white gold. This literally embodies the tagline, "Do better if possible," and that is always possible. Now, as a standalone watch, it easily makes a one watch collection, and hell, I'd be inclined to sell my whole watch collection just to have this one watch. First, it's an ultra thin case, so even with the 41mm case, it wears extremely well on a slim wrist, since the ultra thinness is carried onto the bracelet, which allows the bracelet to drop straight down without additional flare, which is a common challenge for the standard 41mm overseas. Next, you have a perpetual calendar which can adjust the day, date, month, moon phase every day, even if it's a leap year, but in a sports watch package, which seems a bit odd to have this combination together. Like, who would have thought of a situation where you need a sports watch and a perpetual calendar? Well, Vacheron Constantin thought, why not? Along with its white gold bracelet, Vacheron Constantin also provides an additional rubber strap and a leather strap, so you can change the look without tools. Now, regardless of its price, this watch was designed to be worn and not sit in a safe. Now, when you compare the Overseas to the likes of other high horology sport watches, the Overseas Ultra Thin ensures 5-bar water resistance, gives you multiple ways to wear the watch instead of the watch wearing you, has a micro adjustment system hidden cleverly into the bracelet, a high horology ultra thin perpetual calendar complication, and a beautiful lacquered blue dial, all packaged in a precious metal 18-karat white gold case. And in a world where a stainless steel Patek Philippe green dial Nautilus with just time and date is going north of $400,000 after fees at auction, the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Perpetual Calendar Ultra Thin in white gold at just under $100K seems like a bargain. Staying on the topic of sport watches, if you want a watch that punches way above its price point, look no further than the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. The PRX harkens on the authentic 70s steel sport watch vibe with its integrated bracelet, waffle dial, and general wearability for any occasion, which this style of watch is super popular right now among collectors. At just $650 for the blue dial version, you get one of the most handsome Swiss watches that has a 10-bar water resistance, sapphire crystal, 40mm case in steel, 80-hour power reserve, and a Nivachrome balanced spring, which increases its duration before it needs a service. Most people who first see this watch will think of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak self-winding, mainly due to its tapestry or waffle dial pattern. But you really can't complain or call the PRX any names when it's nearly 35 times less expensive at retail. That is, if you can get the AP Royal Oak at retail. But what Tissot aimed to do was to bring back on their designs from the 70s in their own tunnel-shaped case, but packed with 21st century features. It wears great at 40mm, and honestly, it could have been priced at $1,000 and we'd still be praising it. It seems Tissot has more plans down the line with the PRX, as they've included an easy spring bar system to remove the bracelet, so we shall continue to follow and see what straps will definitely be coming down the line. To me, out of this whole list, the PRX is the most underrated and best bang for the buck. Next up is the Longines Spirit Titanium. The Longines Spirit collection is the brand's take on a modern pilot's watch. That means it has a large Arabic numerals for easy reading, large crown for easy grip even with gloves, and a highly legible dial with easy contrast. This year, Longines upgraded the Spirit now in a titanium case and no date, creating a perfect symmetrical dial. Titanium is a special metal used in watchmaking, most known for being super lightweight, scratch resistant, hypoallergenic, and slightly darker hue compared to stainless steel. The new Longines Spirit Titanium is very reminiscent of the Tudor Black Bay 58 with its dark anthracite dial with gilt indices and no date, except it's a pilot's watch instead of a diver, and that it's also in the same price range of $3,000. The Spirit also has a 72-hour power reserve with a silicone balance spring. It is cost certified, it's 10-bar water resistance with a screw-down crown, and has blue Super Luminova. It comes on a bracelet or a black NATO strap that already features an easy spring bar system requiring no tools when using native Longines straps. I think the Longines Spirit Titanium is one of the best pilot watches on the market right now because it completely dominates this price segment, especially when you compare it to pilot watches that are double or triple in price, since the Longines Spirit has a 72-hour power reserve, silicone balance spring, titanium case, and more. And like I mentioned in my Longines Spirit video, don't think of this watch as an alternative to a more expensive pilot watch, but a pilot watch that just dominates its price category. If you want an awesome pilot's watch, look no further than the Longines Spirit Titanium. Last but certainly not least is the Cartier Tank Must SolarBeat. Cartier also decided to do something different this year by reintroducing the Tank Solo into the Tank Must, but ushering on the eco-friendly side. The Tank Must SolarBeat nearly looks the exact same as the classic Tank Must Quartz, but only on a closer viewing will you notice that it is basically a sandwich dial where the bottom layer is a black solar panel underneath the classic Roman numeral clean white dial above. The cutouts of the hour markers allow light to reach the solar panel, thus allowing the quartz battery to be charged via light, which means you won't have to bring in your watch for a battery change every few years. The design of the Cartier tank comes from early World War I tank designs that were adopted onto wristwatches. Everything else about the watch is nearly the same, with having the same sizes offered in the Tank Must, and Cartier knows how to retain some of its most beloved Cartier designs while still innovating in a very subtle way. The strap is even a recycled material no longer used from animal materials, but still emulates that smooth leather texture we traditionally see in calf leather. As a global leader in jewelry and watches, it's no surprise that Cartier would lead the movement to being more eco-friendly and is still adopting it in a very Cartier way. If you watch my channel, you know I love my Cartier Santos because it's an easy watch to wear, and I feel the exact same about the Tank. It's one of the most iconic watches ever produced, and when people think of a rectangular watch case, the Tank is one of the first watches mentioned. Cartier is a pioneer, and the Tank Must SolarBeat is also one of the more affordable Cartier watches, starting under $3,000, but some of their latest innovations, and is a watch that is both iconic and timeless. I would not sleep on this one. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching the entire video and listening in on my top choices for my favorite watches released in 2021. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on my choices, if you agree or if you would have chosen some other watches. Please subscribe to my channel for more watch content and like this video if you enjoyed this style, since I probably will do this every year. Our store, Carrot & Co, is an authorized dealer for many of the watches features here, so if you have any questions, shoot an email over to sales@carrotco.com. Anyways, it's been a minute. I hope everyone has a happy holidays and a happy new year, and I can't wait to see you all next year. Bye bye.